Welcome to the Real Estate Investing School podcast. I'm your host, Joe Jensen. Our guest today, we got two. We're lucky. So we got Landon and Emily Smith, power couple. In 1.5 years that Landon and Emily have been married, they've been focusing on gaining residual income through real estate with the intent of replacing their 9-to-5 jobs. Landon works in solar sales. Emily works as a dental hygienist. Once they've achieved this goal, they plan on spending more time doing what they love, traveling the world, being outdoors, developing new hobbies. So welcome, you guys. So glad to have you on the show and to pick your brains about some of the awesome stuff you've been doing. You guys have really only been, active in real estate for how long?
1.5 years. So ever since we got married, we kind of decided this is what we wanted to do, and we just dove in head first from that time. So
Dude, that's so cool that's just like been there the whole time since you guys been married. How is it working, like doing all this as a couple? You see pros, cons? What's that been like?
I think there's a little bit of both in it. I feel like Emily's really good at, talking with the people and scheduling showings. And then I've been doing a lot of the working, but we do everything together. So it's been cool not to do it on your own, but to have someone to always, do it with.
Especially if you have different strengths like that. It's like, just each of you play into your strength. You get somebody to celebrate your wins with, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely,
absolutely, yeah.
That's super cool. So you guys have been doing real estate for about 1.5 years, been married about 1.5 years. Now you guys have already got 6 deals under your belt. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's all within the past 18 months or so.
So there was one before I met Emily that I kind of bought, but didn't really know anything about real estate. I bought a house. My brothers were looking for a place to live in college, so thought it would be a cool thing, but didn't really actually jump into it until we got married. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, sweet. Let's kind of back up to that. I always love to hear people's first intro to real estate. It sounds like yours was a little bit of a house hack rental to your brother and his buddies then. Mm-hmm. Had you done anything, Emily, with real estate before you guys got married?
No. In fact, I was a little bit real estate adverse. I didn't have a credit card. I was full on avoid debt. I bought my cars with cash. I was like, why would you need to go into debt? And then Landon, we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad together, and that really changed my perspective. And we really started talking about it, and we're like, this is what we want to do. And I learned the difference between good debt and bad debt and how you can leverage debt and build assets with debt. That's, the power in that. And so that's kind of what changed my perspective. And I was all in ever since then.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty common theme I've seen a lot. And I feel like it's the people that kind of started out with being adverse to debt. They're like, I don't like debt. Debt is bad. And so they learn to be financially responsible. And then when you adopt the good debt into that kind of mindset, that's a really good marriage. It's when you all debt's fine and people are going crazy, it's harder to start adding good debt and they can confuse those, but I think that's a really good place to start. But yeah, when you're buying assets, debt's completely different than liabilities. Everybody should go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant. There's just kind of a foundational principles of kind of how to tackle a lot of this. And I love that you guys did that.
What's up, guys? It's Brody Fawcett. Hey, I just want to jump on here really quick and say thank you for tuning in and listening to the show week after week. It means so much to us. Real quick, if you are getting value out of this, please go ahead and leave us a review and feel free to share this with anyone who else you think might receive some value. And if you feel like you could benefit from working with us directly through a one-on-one coach like Joe or through our trainings and online program, head on over to realestateinvestingschool.com where you can schedule a free one-on-one strategy call and dive in to see if Real Estate Investing School will add some value for you.
So Landon, is there anything specific you want to mention about that first deal? What made you, not everybody who goes to college or their brother's going is I'm going to buy a house for people to live in. Where did that come from? What was kind of the first spark of real estate?
So I think a lot of it. So growing up, grew up on a farm. We didn't have a lot. We had enough, but not a lot. And so
Mm-hmm.
my dad was very entrepreneurial minded. And so it kind of grew on me, in school, elementary school, selling things and just paper routes and different things.
Sure.
But what really hit it? So when I was going to BYU and I took a class, an entrepreneurship class, and the professor, like how he made his money was through real estate. And so he kind of like stopped the class for like 3 or 4 days and said, all right, bring your spouses, he's the one that actually gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like, he's like, this is so important. Like, we need to read this. We need to talk about real estate and do this, look at this way, another way of building a business than just making a product. And
That's
so
cool. So what class was he teaching?
entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, it was kind of that. He kind of just talked about it, and it kind of like sparked that, like, I need to buy a house now. But in Provo, I was like, I'm scared. Things are 400,000 at that point, which now they're double that. So I should have bought something there. And so as I was looking for like 6 months to a year, I was like, well, my brothers are going to a different college at half the price. I might as well do that. So it's kind of like a house hack without realizing it was a house hack, just because I did it as my personal residence, but didn't end up staying there very long because I was going to Provo. But it kind of worked out that way, where it was, didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, oh, there's 2 doors, an entrance to go to the basement and an entrance to go upstairs. Like, didn't even know how to run the numbers. So I just kind of like, well, rent can be more than that. Let's go for it,
Yeah.
So it wasn't amazing, but it got it, figured out how to make, how to do a deal, if that makes sense.
Well, and it's funny because we talk so much in real estate, like, oh, like, what's the best deal? Like, this wasn't that good of a deal, or this, that, and trying to like maximize everything. But it's like, it's so much better than the alternative of what else could you have done with that money? You'll spend 5 or 10 grand on some stupid thing. You have nothing to show for it. Do you still own that property? Or did you end up selling it?
I do. Yeah. One of my brothers still lives there with some of his friends. And we actually, when we got into the real estate investing school, we learned about how to pull equity out, cash out refi, and that actually helped propel us into getting our other 5 properties. So
yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. It's like, even though that first deal might have been like whatever, who knows? You didn't even know the numbers to really run them. But it's like, I bet you gained a lot of equity in that to propel you in the future, it sounds like, which is, that's such a cool way to do it. You know what I mean? So I tell people, it's like, anything is almost better than nothing, as long as you don't lose the asset. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously you experienced that firsthand. So let's fast forward then. So you bought that, kind of dabbled in it. You were inspired by your professor at college, which is awesome. Everybody's like, oh, college is useless. A lot of people talk about that in the entrepreneur world, but it's like, I graduated college. I've learned a ton there. I learned critical thinking. I learned a lot of like how to like approach life, how to study. I'm a big self-learner. And I think I learned a lot of that in college. And obviously yours, he inspired you to actually buy a house and do stuff like that. So shout out to the professors that are making a difference. But that's awesome. So let's fast forward then. So then you guys get married, and you guys are students of the real estate investing school. You've been students for what, over a year now? You're one of our first ones.
Basically we got in right after we got married. So we got married, and then a couple months later is when we found the school and joined at that time.
So which came first? Where you guys decided, hey, we're going to go hard with real estate investing and started doing stuff on your own and then join the school? Or did you like, hey, we want to do this, we know it's important, but we don't know where to start, and then join the school and then started running? How did that happen?
So what happened is, when we were getting married, we were looking for places to live, and rent was through the roof. We knew we wouldn't be, putting that money towards building our future. So we're like, we want to buy a house of our own. And we didn't have any guidelines or any, coaching, or we didn't really know where to look for to learn how to invest. Yeah. So we kind of just took what we knew, what our parents told us, what we had heard through the grapevine and stuff. And we found a good house. We had some good savings. We put 20% down. And we're like, wow, we're doing awesome. We have 2 properties now. But it wasn't until we were like, wow, that was a lot of money. That was like a lot of savings that we had to put down on that house. How are we going to be able to grow this? We can't save that much money every year if we have to put 20% down every single time we want to buy a house.
Yeah.
So we started looking at, different options of ways to learn to, creative financing and, different ways to not use as much money every single time we wanted to buy a house. And that's how we stumbled across real estate investing school. And Brody, we booked a call with him immediately. And we're like, if we're going to really, jump into this, we need to invest in something that will teach us the best way and the most effective way to do this.
That's awesome. And then you guys have really ran with it. I want to break down, so I guess your first deal was the deal you did out of the 6. There's the house hack with your brothers.
Yeah.
And then there was your guys' primary that you guys bought, what you just described, Emily. Yes. And then let's dive into the next 4 deals, how you kind of found them, how you funded them, like how you knew it was a good deal and felt confident, going from 2 deals in however long to, doubling that again in just like a year or so.
Definitely. So the first one, as soon as we got in, we're like, we need to figure out our next house hack. And so we just got on the MLS, and there was a Duplex by BYU, actually, was where we moved in. But they've been on and off the MLS 2 or 3 times, and it was kind of like, oh, it needs a new roof, and the basement apartment is too short. Like, I actually hit my head every time I walk in there. But it was one of those things where it was like, it will work if we can force it and if we can figure out, different ways of looking at it. And so a lot of people didn't want to worry about the roof, but in my line of doing solar, we do roofs all the time. So I had a guy to call. So I think that was that one. It was expensive to get into it if it was just our own money, but that's when we cashed out, refied my first property to have the money for the down payment, which made it work at that point. Because then it wasn't necessarily like we're putting our money into it. It was the equity out of the other property to make it work and cover that down payment.
And then the cool thing with that is, since it was our house hack, we rented one side of the duplex to BYU students, individually rooms, which gave us more cash flow. And then we lived in the other side of the duplex, and we lived there for free. So then we had, we didn't have to worry about making a house payment. We were living for free. So that was more money that we could save to put into our next property.
That's all. And that was your second or third property?
That was the third property. So we had the house hack with his brothers, and then our one that we got married when we first got that. And then we got into the school a few months later. And then a few months after that, we bought that one.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the first one you bought when you were married, was that more of this like the typical like, oh, this is a cute house. We want it. We bought it. We live it. You didn't run any numbers or think about it as an investment. What ended up happening with that one? Did you guys rent it out, or did you sell it, or?
Yeah, we started renting it out. She loves it. Like, it's a lot nicer than a basement apartment that we were living in, but it's a condo, and we have great renters there, and so it's worked out great. We just wish we wouldn't have put as much money down into it so we could have that money for something else.
But we bought it in 2021, and so we have a super low interest on that one, like 2.7%. So that's one like, we can't get rid of that interest rate. We have such a low payment on it, and so.
Well, it's funny how you mentioned the biggest mistake was this putting too much down, right? And I did the same thing. I used to put 20% down on all my primaries so I wouldn't have to pay mortgage insurance, because I'm so smart. I'm not going to throw away money to mortgage insurance, and that was the mindset. And that's what you guys did. That's what I did. And now looking back, it's like, man, I could have put 5% down. Like, I'd have put 20%, especially when debt was that cheap. When you're getting a 2 or 3% interest, it's like,
exactly.
Put as little down as possible. But, you live, you learn. I think we've all looked back like, oh, I wish. Yeah. I know. I paid my house off. I had like a 2.7% interest rate, and I paid it off. It was like my life goal. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would kill for that interest rate. Wish I had left and spent all that money buying real estate.
Absolutely.
But that's how it goes. So that's awesome. So your first 3 deals were house hacks. House hack when you were single, house hack when you first got married, and then house hack that you moved into the duplex. So, way to go from like the cute, nice, comfortable thing to like the crappier, not as nice, but like financially responsible thing.
Hard. Let me tell you that. Like, I would like, just like when we showed up to move in, I just looked around and I was like, are we sure we want to do this? Like, you know, it was built in the 1930s. There's cracks in the wall. The ceilings are only 6 feet tall and he's 6'4", so it didn't work in some places. The bathroom is like, you know, 6 square feet probably. And I was like, this is so hard to go to like downgrade housing. But I knew it would be worth it in the long run. So we just kind of sucked it up and said, hey, like we're going to have what we want someday. So we got to sacrifice now.
So is that something you guys were pretty on the same page about, or did it kind of, did Landon have to sell you on it, or were you selling Landon on it, or were you just kind of both like, yeah, no, this is what we're doing?
I think we're both like pretty sold on it. There were some days like there's no way I'm gonna live there. Like it's too dungeony, you know, for what we're used to. But I think like once we kind of figured out, you know, we have goals bigger than this. Like it's worth it at that time, right?
Well, and this is a cool thing, right? It's like you still own the other houses.
Yeah.
You can move. You can go do another house hack next year. Like you're not there forever. So many times with real estate, people feel like it's a life sentence. Even if it's not a house hack, people get so nervous. Like, is this really the deal I want to buy? And I have this concept. I just say it's like you got to look at it. Like it's one of 100. It's one of 100. Don't over-identify and hold on to this deal. Like it's one of 100. Just keep going. Okay, so we'll buy that, and then we'll move, and then we'll buy that, and then we'll move, and then we'll buy that, or whatever. You know, buying investment properties is so much easier than buying primaries, because, like, say, one, you don't have to live in them usually. You guys are right now, which is awesome. But again, you're not stuck there. But you also don't have to pay the mortgage. You know, when you go buy a home that you're going to live in, like you might have to pay the mortgage if you're not house hacking it. But when you buy an investment property, as long as someone else can cover the cost, it's like people are like, how are you buying so many houses? It's like, well, because I'm not paying for them. Like the tenants are. Like I'm not affording the bill on, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 different houses. Like I don't pay that. That's not scary at all. It's scary buying something that you have to cover the bill. It's like, that's a little more stressful, you know?
Exactly.
But that's cool. You guys found one, and it was actually able to cover most or all of the mortgage, and in 2021 in Utah.
Yeah.
I actually think that's the craziest is that everyone's like, why are you investing in Utah? And it was, I think, just renting it out to students. Like our mortgage was like $2,700, and we're renting out everything for $2,500 or $2,600. So we're living there for $100, $200, and so easy. You know, at that point, it's just easy.
It was a no-brainer because.
Yeah, which is so cool. And I mean, and obviously, you know, the higher, more expensive markets like the Utah or California or whatever, you know, it's like, oh yeah, they're not as high cash flowing, but man, the appreciation value is going to go up way more. The actual quality of the asset, like, is way more ideal. So if you can swing it, that's the way to do it, you know. And it's super cool that you guys really do it, because a lot of times people are like, I can't find anything that would cash flow or do this or that, you know. And you guys, this isn't 10 years ago. I mean, this is 2 years ago. You guys just barely got this thing, not even 2 years ago. So how did you find it? Because if you guys rented out the side you're in for another $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 or something, you'd be cash flowing pretty well.
Yeah.
How did you find that? A lot of people feel like they can't find anything in these kind of states.
So this one was kind of an interesting situation because it was actually on the MLS, and we got into a habit where every single day we would pull up, you know, Zillow or whatever other site, and we would just run the numbers on multiple properties just to get used to running the numbers, recognizing good deals, and knowing exactly what we needed to look for in the future. And I came across this property and I like ran the numbers and I was like, wait a second, this one actually works. Like, am I doing something?
Wait. Yeah, am I doing something wrong? Like they never pan out.
Yeah. And so my best friend's husband is actually our realtor. And so I was able to just call them up right then. And I was like, hey, will you look up this house for me? It's been on the MLS for 90 days or something, which was kind of unheard of in that 2021. Yeah, that year or whatever. And so he looked it up and he said, yeah, you know, it's been under contract about 4 times, but they've always dropped out because, like Landon mentioned, they found out it needed a new roof. And, you know, I think that just scared people away. They were like, wow, I have to put so much money down for a duplex and I have to buy a new roof. Like, that's too much up front. And so we were like, well, you know, we're not as afraid of a new roof because Landon has these connections in the solar industry and stuff. So we went to go look at it, and it it actually worked out. They actually accepted a different offer above ours, and they accepted ours as a backup offer. And then sure enough, those people dropped out because they were like, we don't want to do a new roof. And we were like, hey, if it takes a new roof to get a property that we can live in for free and grow all this equity in, then we'll do it. So
That's awesome. I love that. So you so for the roof, did you just do a new roof and add solar and kind of bundle that whole thing together for the cost, or what did you do for the new roof?
So we just did the roof, but like the roofer we used on all of our deals just gave us a good property, or gave us a good deal on it. Yeah. So we thought about doing solar, but it has 3 power bills with it. And so it's really, you only can hook up 1 power bill per.
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't worth it at that time. And so, yeah, we're like, let's do the roof for now. But we checked out 3 or 4 different companies. And then also I was like, I might as well just use the one I already used. And they gave me a 30% off kind of thing. So,
and again, we
awesome.
pulled equity out of the first property that Landon already had, and so that paid for the down payment and the new roof. So while it would have been nice to like cash or put a little bit of that cash in our pockets, nothing really came out of our pockets for that, and so it was
That's
a
awesome.
cash return.
Yeah, that's super cool. And that's the thing, right? You find the things that are scaring other people, you find a solution for it, and then you're able to take action, and meanwhile, now if let's say you were the buyer who backed out of that deal, a year or 2 later, now they're like, oh my gosh, they can't find anything. And they're paying a lot more than whatever the roof would have cost,
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love that. So you guys did that, and that puts us at 3 deals, right? So then how did you double that again, going from 3 to 6 deals after the 3 house hacks?
So on the next one, we're like trying to figure out a way, like a lot of our money, is going different ways in all these different houses. So we were just like, let's find a way to do it with, little money or, as much less down as possible. Right. And
Sure.
so one of our coaches in the school is Chase. He's really big into the Burr. So we bought the Burr book and we started reading the Burr book. And so we got on some wholesale deals, and we actually got a deal
through another coach in the school, Jaden.
Nice.
Awesome. So lots of connections there. That's been one of our favorite parts of the school is having all the connections and everybody.
I love that. That's cool. Yeah. So you found the wholesale deal to Jaden, and then you guys got it under contract. And so did you buy it cash and then refinance it? Because the Burr thing, right, is you buy it, you rehab it, you rent it out, and you refinance, and then you repeat. That's kind of the whole Burr thing, a lot of times those you do need to buy in cash and then do the refinance. So kind of walk us through how you're able to acquire that wholesale deal.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, you have to buy cash with it. So we found a hard money lender to get cash for it. And for our first Burr deal, we wanted to do something that looked light, right? It didn't need all the things in the world. So it was basically paint and floors kind of thing. And so, we got cash for it, and we actually bought it, pretty cheap. It was $322,000. It was kind of far away though, out in Twilla, okay. Utah. And so we get there, and we kind of like, all right, let's do flooring, let's do, painting, turn on YouTube, learn how to do some flooring. So we ended up putting only about $4,000 into it, without our, not counting our labor. But then when we refinanced it, it was actually over $400,000. So it's kind of crazy that, we didn't put a lot of effort. We didn't put a lot of money into it. And then we refinanced it for over $400,000. So we gained almost $100,000 in equity
within the matter of a couple of weeks, and
wow,
$1,000.
Wow, and it sounds like you probably bought it a little undervalued, just because it was a wholesale deal. So even if you had done nothing to it, it would have been worth more just because you got it undervalued. Was it probably not financeable as is, some of the repairs, or was it? Do you know why they sold it to a wholesaler?
Yeah.
It was financeable. I think the guy selling it, I'm not sure about his situation, but I think he just wanted the cash and he wanted a quick and easy close. And so he went the wholesale route. And even if he
Cool.
lost a little bit of, money that he could have sold it for traditionally, the timing and just getting the cash quickly was worth it to him. And so
Yeah.
that's why he sold it that way.
Yeah, timing can be huge. That's awesome, So you guys are able to lock that down, do a little fix up, get it reappraised. Did your lender make you wait a year or 6 months to put debt on it and put a loan on it? A lot of times they'll do that. They have a thing called a seasoning period, right? Where it's like, well, yeah, you bought it, but you're gonna have to own it for 6 or 12 months. Or were you able to turn around and put long-term debt on it right away?
We actually were able to turn around and put long-term debt on it right away. We have an awesome lender also through the school. Shout out to Jason. And he was able to help us. I think we refinanced it about a month after we bought it.
Really? Was there any trick to that, or was it just kind of like that just lined up? They just didn't care about the seasoning.
So I think the big thing is with the seasoning is to pull money out,
to cash
out. And so because the market was going crazy right there, we're like, let's just get it into normal debt, and then we'll wait the year to pull out that. So it's basically a burr, but we haven't like pulled out the cash yet to continue forward, just because interest rates at that time were, I think we got like a 7.5 on it. And so we just want to lock it down, so we're not stuck in this hard money. And then, when things go down a little bit, we'll just cash out, once our year.
But you were able to get the majority or all of the money you put into buying it and rehabbing it back?
So not yet. So right now it's in the property. So when we closed on it with the hard money loan, we would have had to wait 6-month seasoning period to do a cash out refinance to pull out the money that we put into it.
Okay.
But we wanted to just refinance and just do a traditional loan, and then just to get out of the hard money loan and just to kind of, lock in an interest rate. That was a time when there's a lot of chatter, people weren't sure what the market would do or if interest rates would shoot up and stuff. So we actually refinanced immediately. And we just got a conventional 30-year loan on that place. And then our plan is in a few months, once we hit that seasoning period, then we will cash out refinance. And that's the time that we'll be able to pull the money out that we put into it.
Gotcha. So basically you just paid off the hard money lender.
Exactly.
And that was the only money. But the cool thing is this wasn't an expensive rehab. This wasn't like a $80,000, $90,000 rehab. So really the
max.
Yeah. So, so you're all in out of your pocket for this place, just a couple grand in rehab.
Exactly. Yeah. But we have about $100,000 of equity or more actually in that property. And
which
so
is
our plan
crazy,
is once that seasoning period is up, we'll cash out, refinance that, and then roll that money over into a new property.
I love it. That's awesome. That's such so sometimes the burr thing it can be so intimidating because, you're thinking like, $200,000 hard money loan with high interest, and then another $100,000 in a rehab. And it's like, what if you can't get the money out? And what if, there's so much work on the rehab. It's like, you guys just did a lipstick fix and you were able to pull the money out. It wasn't this crazy lifelong 6-month process. And you're able to still just pay off the hard money lender and be good to go.
When we first learned about the burr method and hard money loans, I remember I said to Landon, that's really cool for people who want to do that, but we're never going to do that because that sounds scary.
Sounded too risky for you.
Exactly. Here we were, our 4th deal, and we're like, well, let's do it. It makes sense. It works. And we tried it. And one thing that we've learned is things sound much more intimidating and much scarier and riskier than they actually have been.
That's cool.
For us, at least.
That's cool. So what were some of the key things you'd say for people that might be a little intimidated to buy something using a hard money lender? Because, but aren't they money sharks, and there's high interest rates, and if anything goes wrong, that's so much money to borrow without any security. Yeah. And what about the rehab? What if it all goes wrong? What would you say to somebody who's they feel nervous about doing something like that?
So one thing I'd say is we had a few exit strategies. We figured, worst case scenario, the appraisal doesn't come back for as high as we're expecting. And I guarantee we'll be able to sell this for at least what we bought it for. because we bought it
Sure.
for pretty under market value. So we kind of had that safety net there where we were like, we can either refinance and hold on to this long term, or it can be a learning opportunity and we can sell it for under value again, and then at least, be out of the deal. No money gained, but no money lost kind of a thing. The other
Cool.
thing is I called multiple hard money lenders and I just asked them all like, hey, I'm a first time hard money lender borrower, I guess. Like, what are your terms for me? This is where we're looking. And they all gave me their terms and they were all over the board. Like,
Yeah.
so all over the board. I thought they would at least be like similar. And we had anything from like 8% to 15% and, $10,000 up front to $3,000 up front and stuff. And so I just kept calling and calling until I found one that I was like, we can do that. That's good terms. So those are kind of my two pieces of advice. Would you add anything to that?
I think it was like, it just sounds scary, hard money. And there's a lot of things in the real estate that sound scary. And I think it's just kind of like learning how to go for it. And, the risk is there, but the reward's higher, so I think that's a big thing that we've kind of learned just with this process in general is kind of like, it's scary. Like for one time I was like, I hope I find a deal, but I kind of hope I don't because I don't know what to do with it. And I think like just learning, those steps now it's like, wow, I hope I find a deal because now I have lender in place. I have this in place. I can do the work. Like it's like we have our different steps that, you can't run a marathon without taking those first steps. So I think it's like figuring that out early, you just have to go for it and, things will go wrong and things have went wrong. But if you look at overall, it's still a win at that point.
Yeah, I love talking to you guys about it, because, somebody who's done like 100 of these, they kind of forget the early fears and pain and a lot of the little things they just kind of take for granted, you know what I mean? Of like, how to even find a hard money lender, for you guys, it's all so new that it just seems so much more approachable too. Cause like you say, oh, that's cool for somebody else, but I'm not ever going to do that. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way with all of real estate and all the successful things like, wow, that's cool for somebody, but like that could never be me. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like you guys you just did it. You're not some big fancy thing that's been doing this for a million years or done tons of deals. Like you just found a way to do it. So how did you find the hard money lender? Were you just referred to a couple by your coach or how did you get those?
Yeah. So I Googled, I asked there's like a Facebook page for real estate investors of Utah. I posted on that and I said, hey, I need hard money. I had a lot of people reach out to me, like send me messages. I can fund your deal. I can fund your deal. And so then I just asked them that way. The one that we ended up going through was a referral through the coach. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And who, let's give them a little shout out. Who was the hard money lender you guys picked?
Boomerang Capital Funding out of Arizona.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's super cool. I really like how you pointed out that like not all lenders that have terms that are equal. Like, and it's kind of like that in not even just in hard money, even in long-term debt, especially when you get into investment loans and commercial loans. Like, it's amazing the variety of terms that you see out there. Yeah, like I remember when I first got into real estate, I was like, I thought, oh, it's gonna be like in the same ballpark. It's like. Yeah. Dude, not always. It's a big variety. And the more you get out of like the normal conforming, like typical primary residence, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac backed conventional loan, the further you get from that, the wider the spectrum of options gets.
Absolutely.
Cool. So you did it. You did the bird. You found something on a wholesale deal. You bought it with hard money. You paid how much money do you have to pay up front to borrow that money? Because they usually charge an upfront fee, right?
Yeah, so they actually just charge 1% of the purchase price. So our purchase price was $322,000. So it was right around $3,000.
Cool. So you paid the $3,000 for that. You paid a couple grand more for the rehabbing, the painting. You did a lot of the labor yourself, so a little sweat equity. And then when you put a normal loan on it, you just did a conventional investment loan on that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
And luckily you had which those you typically need to put 25% down on if it's a duplex conventional loan. But you had so much equity in it that you really didn't have to put anything down because it had the 25% equity.
Yeah, we didn't have to put any extra cash because we had forced the equity enough that covered any down payment that we would have had to do. And then we actually just rolled our closing costs into the loan as well.
Beautiful.
And so we closed with bringing no money to the table for that deal.
And again, it was because it wasn't a purchase, it was a refinance.
Exactly.
They were just paying off the previous lender. Because even if you were going and buying the thing initially at $250,000, even though it's worth $400,000, the bank would still say, well, cool, you still got to put 25% down of the purchase price, regardless of what it's worth. But because you were refinancing out, they were like, okay, well, we'll just pay that off and the equity's there. I'm still surprised they didn't make you wait 6 months. But again, just keep going. That's the thing. It's like one lender will say this thing, another lender won't. So I love that you're able to pull that off. Power of having a good lender like Jason Griffin is awesome, and there's tons of other ones, but that's cool that you guys were able to pull that off. And you're really only in it, under $10,000 money tied up into it, and then spend $10,000 to get $100,000 worth of equity. That's a
pretty good.
That's a good jump in your net worth right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super exciting. You make me want to go do a burr right now. That's cool. All right, so that was deal number 4. Let's move on to the next deal. So you get that one done out of the way, and again, it's not even done, right? It's like, dude, in another 6 months or a year, whatever, you are going to do a big cash out refinance, especially if rates drop, and then you roll that into it's just so cool. One thing can just become so much more. So it's like, this is just the beginning of even that one deal. But so let's go to deal number 5.
Yeah. So the next one, we're trying to find another way to low money down and, just figure out, without doing a house hack, how we're going to put as little money down as possible. So we're just, we're always looking at Facebook posts, and we're always looking at different things. And there was a guy that posted on Facebook that he wanted to sell his home for seller financing, potentially.
It's just one of those Facebook real estate groups like you were talking about. Cool.
And a lot of times, maybe a scam, but who knows? Let's try it, right? And so basically, we'd made an appointment with him to go visit. That was a Sunday night, and it was for Wednesday. But then all of a sudden, I look at the comments, and there's 30 or 40 comments within the hour. And so I tell Emily, we have to go earlier. Let's get there early as possible. So we call him back, and we're like, what's the earliest you can meet tomorrow? And he said, come at 2:00. And so Emily was working, and so I'm like, I'm going to go and, check this thing out. It's a big house. It's, 4,500 square feet. He was asking a lot for it, $700,000. But, if the terms worked, the numbers were going to work great. And so I kind of just went and checked things out, and he had his contractor there. He was redoing the whole house before he sold it. So it was kind of cool where it was like, this would be a cool option because we don't have to put any money down into it to, to fix it up, brand new carpet. He's also like, I'm adding a kitchen in one spot. So that there ended up being 3 kitchens and 3 entrances. So basically a 3-plex.
Wow.
And so as we're talking, I was sending videos to Emily. I'm like, what do you think? And it was just kind of I think we should do it, which was kind of scary too, because Emily hadn't looked at it at all. I'm like, well, $700,000. I think we should just go for it, right?
That's the power of being so much on the same page too. That with our wholesale bird deal, Landon actually hadn't seen it. I was the only one who saw it when we closed and signed. And with this deal, I hadn't seen it. Landon was the only one who's seen it when we closed and signed. And I remember telling my boss, I was at work and I was like, oh, my husband is buying a house right now. And he was looked at me like I was insane. You're not even going to go see it. And I was like, we're so much on the same page. We know, we have our parameters. We know what we want, that I trust him. If it's going to work out, I don't need to see it,
That's awesome. So what are some of the parameters? What are some of the things hey, these are what we're looking for. If it hits this, we feel comfortable. Because somebody listening might be like, well, how did you know you should buy it? How do you know it's even a good deal?
I think a lot with ours, we do look at the cash on cash return. We're like, hey, if we can get at least a 10% cash on cash return, let's go for it. A little money down, but get that return back.
Yeah.
Just return on the money you put into it in that first, year.
That was a really helpful thing that we learned through the school, and the tool that we got through real estate investing school was that cash on cash calculator. We both have a Google Doc of it, we both have access to it, we can just plug in how much money we have to put into it, how much we can rent it for, interest rate, and boom, it shoots out the cash on cash return. So we just know right off the bat what that would be.
That's awesome. That's cool. I love that. So then how much money did you end up buying? So how did you get him to commit? So he had all these other people that are interested, and you go early. You wanted to be the first one, which is super smart. And then you're like, you've already ran the numbers, I guess, before you meet with him, right? You know how much each unit will rent for. You know how much your payment would be with him already. Or did you not know the payment amount yet?
Yeah. So basically on that, as I was talking to him, he like owns his own business. He's not really like in it to make money. He's just like, he's a flipper. And he's like, I never want to hold onto properties. And so he's like, it's going to be dumb. I have 15 more people coming today. I don't want to stay here the rest of the day. I just want to go home and see my wife. And so I'm like, well, how about this? Go home and see her now. I'll take it. And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. Like, what do we need to do? And he's like, well, let's run the numbers a little bit. Like, he was letting us choose between 5 and 10% down, between 30 and 40 year loan. And then it was 5% interest if that's what we wanted to do, at minimum 5% interest. And so as we'd run the numbers, it was actually going to come out, if we rented out all 3 units basically separately, it was going to be a cash on cash return over 30%.
Jeez.
And so with that, I was like, it was cool too, because he's like, what's your credit? And I was like, high 700s. Cool. Let's shake hands right here and it's in. So we accepted right there. It was kind of cool. Like, didn't have to worry about the bank checking anything. Like, he didn't check anything. He just asked if I was making, good enough money to cover things. And he's like, I'd rather give it to you than these other people, that wait around for it. So kind of, it was pretty cool at that point, because it was like, all right, we're accepted. But then it was kind of, interesting with him too, because he was still trying to figure things out and do his construction on it. So then we thought we kind of lost it for a while, because it took a month or two till we heard from him again. We're like,
really? So you guys didn't sign a purchase agreement right then? It was just a handshake deal.
Well, yeah, just a handshake deal at that time. A couple weeks later, we did sign something, but like, we signed and we never saw his side. So we're like, well, is it still happening? Like, I tried calling him and nothing. I texted him. I was like, I think we got scammed on this, right?
Yeah.
We hadn't given him any money or any information though. So we were like, well, bummer, but we're not out anything.
Cool.
But yeah, then all of a sudden, like I said, he reached back out. He's like, all right, it's ready to go. It was 3 months later. I'm ready to sign, which worked out for us, because it was going to happen in like December. And I was like trying to rent out, December or January wasn't going to work anyway. So by the time we signed on it was March. And then, then the numbers were working out, because then it would be easier to rent out.
We found that it's easier to rent in the spring or summer versus the winter. So that's why.
Did he express anything of why he was interested in doing it seller financing instead of just like fixing it up and pulling all of his money out? Because he has cash tied up in that thing, because he's paid for the remodel. Did he express why he preferred to do it this way?
I think a lot of it, he just wanted his money back. So he only bought it a year ago. I think he bought it, because we bought it for $700. He bought it for like $650 and put $50 into it. So he was going to not make any money on it. And so with that, he wanted to just make it off of our interest. And so because of that, he's like, do you want to do a balloon on this? Because everyone in seller financing, you have to pay it off in 3 to 5 years. And I said, no. So we actually don't have a balloon on it either. So we could just stay with him for
40 years,
40-year loan, which is cool, because our payment on that's a lot cheaper than some of our other places, and it's double the price, if that makes sense.
That's great.
He actually said that he had, after we, kind of shook on it and he took it down off of Facebook, he said that he still had a ton of people reaching out to him like, hey, I'll give you 20% down. I'll do a 5-year balloon. And he said to us, all these people think that they're offering me better terms, but that's not actually what I want. You guys came and talked to me and you learned that I wanted to make the money off of your interest over a 40-year period and have that long-term monthly income. And that's what I want. So why would I go with these people who are offering me more money up front? I don't want that. And so I thought that was really cool to come and talk to him and just like get to know what he's looking for and not just assume that everybody just wants more cash up front.
That's such a cool win-win. And that's the thing. If you look at the amortization schedule, especially of a 40-year loan, it's like
Yeah.
he's going to make, yeah, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars more than if he had turned around and sold it, especially with a real estate agent doing a traditional
Yeah.
sale. He would have, everything he would have made, he would have lost in commissions. And then he's just walking away with virtually nothing. This way, over the next 40 years, he's going to make, I don't know, more than $500,000 probably in interest payments over 40 years of that kind of loan. And the cool thing is you're not paying for it. The tenants are, you know what I mean? So it's such a win-win-win. And the tenants will be stoked too. They just got a newly remodeled place they get to live in, and it's hard to find good places. And it's like everybody can come out a winner. You know what I mean? So that's super cool. So did you guys get that all finalized and locked down, or are you guys still in the process?
Yeah, that's all locked down. It was kind of cool at the end. He was like, I promised I'd get you new appliances too. So here's a check so you can go buy new appliances for it. So like it was we even got it in for cheaper than we expected because he gave us a check to buy a fridge and a couple stoves and just different things. So it was kind of cool. It's all locked down and then it's rented out at the moment. So
one thing I learned with that deal too is when we tell people about it, everybody says, "Oh wow, you got so lucky, which is true. We got so lucky, and I'm so grateful for that. But at the same time, we got lucky because we knew we wanted to do a seller finance deal. We knew that we had to act fast and constantly be looking for that it wasn't just going to stumble across, come knock on our front door. And so every single day we would be looking and until we finally found one. And that's kind of how we got lucky, is like we were looking for it. Do you know what I mean? It didn't just come to us. And then we were just able to act on it really fast, and that's what he wanted. So
yeah, I mean, when you take the harder I work, the luckier I get, right?
Exactly.
So you take the hard work. One, you had signed up for the school and you had learned how to analyze a deal and you learned how to do all these things. You'd spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours learning how to do everything that you'd feel confident. Then you were keeping your eye on the Facebook groups and you joined the Facebook groups and you scoured them and then you got the deal. And then like Landon was saying, you're like, hey, I'm not going to meet you as the 15th person. I'm going to meet you as the first person. So then you got strategic and then you got it in there and then you pushed them on like, hey, don't even meet with anybody else. Just meet with these. You use little sales skills there. And then you locked it down and you're in a position where you can say, hey, look, we're confident. We know what we're doing. We have good credit. A lot of people looking for seller financing, they can't get normal loans because they have bad credit. And as the seller, I'm way going to rather prefer somebody like you with high sevens that I'm going to, make payments to me than like somebody else, Mm-hmm. So that was, again, you had positioned yourself to be an attractive buyer. And so, yeah, like you say, it's lucky, but there's all these pieces that come together. And I love that you point that out, but and awesome that you did get lucky that he was cool and he was a dope guy and he stuck to his word. He could have backed out on you and maybe sold it for more. And, but it all came together. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but if you just keep pushing along, I mean, how many other deals did you probably analyze or look at or reach out to before that one that didn't even go anywhere?
A lot.
Yeah.
We had to weed through a lot of deals, a lot of, no returned phone calls, a lot of dead ends and stuff before we found these.
Well, I love it, man. We could chat about this stuff forever. We do need to wrap up here shortly, though. So last thing, then I guess deal number 6. I guess we have one more deal, and then we'll go into our final 4 questions.
So yeah, so that's the deal that we're in currently. So another house hack. We came up on the year.
Okay.
Just on the MLS again, we were running our numbers and kept running our numbers, and there was a house that kind of caught our eye, but it was still
overpriced.
Yeah, almost like 40,000 over what our numbers would make sense at. So Emily was like, well, let's just make an offer. Market's going a little crazy right now. Let's just try it. And so we made an offer and they countered. And then we come to find out that the sellers were, getting a divorce and a few different things. So they'd had to sell. So it actually kind of worked out because they had to sell. No one else wanted to put it in offer what they were asking for it because they'd only bought it a year ago. So they put all this money into it, and so they were trying to get back what they put into it, right? And we kind of knew that, but we was just kind of like guessing, just kind of things that we'd looked up a little bit. And so we're like, let's try it. We put 50 under asking, and they accepted, with covering, most of our closing costs and different things that way. And so that was kind of that. But the basement wasn't finished. They were redoing the basement themselves. We're like, we're gonna have to put some money into it to redo this place. So
Yeah.
So it's it's just the typical house hack, but at the same time with the way the market was, it's like, why not try to ask for lower money down, right? Or not lower money down, but like a lower down payment or lower than what they're asking in
Lower
it.
purchase price.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Lower purchase
Yeah.
price. And so and I think it didn't hurt. No one else was trying for it, so they accepted, and so it kind of worked out because that's what made our numbers work at that point.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? The worst they can say is no. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
all right. So did you guys end up buying that and move into that, or you're in the process?
Yes, we actually moved into it this past weekend. So,
so you're out of the dungeon. No
Yeah.
more 6-foot ceilings. No more
Yeah.
buzzing your head.
like cook. I can. Yeah, great.
That's so cool. And I mean, that's what we were saying at the beginning, right? Like, you don't have to be there forever, and you're already not. Like,
It went
you know what I
really
mean?
fast. Like,
Yeah. And you still own that other one now, and now you own this one, so that's so cool. I mean, what 4 out of the 6 were house hacks. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a really good way to maximize your money.
it's a really easy way.
Yeah, I mean, and it's genius. It's like, why would you stop doing that? I mean, you also got creative with the other ones. Like, you guys are honestly an inspiration. We could chat about this forever, but it's so cool seeing you just take the knowledge that you have and just running with it. You know what I mean? I love it. Well, we're going to bust into the final 4 questions that we do for everybody. Before we do that, though, is there any final kind of takeaways or advice you give to anybody that's like, thinking about doing real estate or is in the middle of doing it, but they're kind of scared or whatnot?
One thing that I've been thinking about a lot is a lot of people, when we tell them that we invest in real estate, they're kind of like, oh, I'd hate to be a landlord. Like, that sounds terrible. I'd hate to have my tenants always calling me to fix things up and stuff. And while we get that, it's not as much as we expected it would be. And I also just have to remind myself, we are literally like building and running a 7-figure business. Like, of course, it's not going to be a walk in the park. Of course, you're going to have to do a little bit of work, and there are going to be hard times, and things are going to be, go wrong and be frustrating, and you're going to lose a little bit of money here and there, maybe, or things are going to take longer than you think. But overall, like, look at the big picture. Like, we're building this legacy and this thing that, like, one day we'll be able to retire from our jobs in the near future, hopefully. And of course, it's not going to be easy, but it's much easier than going a traditional business route, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, if you look at the amount of wealth that you're building, maybe not like daily income, like a paycheck, but the amount of wealth you're building for the amount of headache, it's like, I mean, imagine somebody like, oh, I don't want to go to a 9-to-5 job, like, and make money, like, because then a boss will want me to like do things. Like, that sounds like a headache,
Yes.
It's like, that's way bigger headache and time than like answering a couple phone calls and scheduling a plumber or whatever the fear is of being a landlord. It's like people will do a lot worse things for a lot less wealth building than what you do, even self-managing the real estate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They always ask, how many times have you had to go fix a toilet? And it's kind of like, well, how many times do you have to fix your own toilet? Never, right? Like there's that.
Right.
We hear that from everyone, which makes sense. No one really knows, but it's cool just to kind of what she said, just kind of keep moving forward. I think that's a big thing with it. It's always scary until you go for it, and so you just have to work at it each day, right?
I love it. Well, sweet. Well, let's bust into these. So the final 4. All right, Landon and Emily, what is a non-real estate related bucket list item you've recently checked off or are excited to check off next?
So I think a recent one that we did that I think was cool was we went paragliding in Rio. It was
cool.
one of those things. It's scary, but once you're up there, it's like, this is not real life. Going around
That's
all
awesome.
the big rocks. That was really cool.
A lot of our bucket list items have to do with travel because that's just something that we both love. And so one of my dream trips has always been to go to Thailand and bathe the elephants and play with the elephants and stuff. And so we just decided we're going to go. So we're planning the trip now, and we're going to go probably in the next 6 months or so. And so that's something we're really looking forward to.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's been one of my favorite trips too, is spending time with the elephants in Thailand. Like, and I was only there for like 3 days. It was like on way back from another trip, but it was cool. It definitely like stuck in my brain. So I'm excited for you guys. That's awesome. All right, question number 2. What book are you currently reading?
So together we're actually reading Pace Morby's book, Wealth Without Cash. Cool. So how to do seller finance and sub 2 deals. So we're like super interested in that right now. So like we have to learn from the master of it. So let's read the book together. So that's the one that we're kind of reading together. Yeah.
I love that. That's cool. And then question number 3, what content or book or podcast or YouTube channel or et cetera, whatever, would you guys recommend people check out?
So I think a big one, just Bigger Pockets is the main one I listen to every day driving to work, and to go along with the real estate investing school podcast. Like those are the 2 main I listen to every week. And like there's sometimes it's like things that I've already heard, but there's always like that one liner that like like hits me. I'm like, wow, I need to do that. Or, it's really cool just like to have like other people that are doing it, because most of the time your family and friends aren't doing it. It's other people, that you can kind of be friends with on the podcast, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. It's like half time you're learning, half time you're just like being inspired. Like it's keeping your mind and heart in the game, That's great. All right, okay. So last question, then we'll let you guys go. What would be your text bomb to the world? If you could text message out and everybody's going to get a message from you, what's it going to say?
So I think mine would be do what others, won't. So others, or what's that quote? Jerry Rice. It's do what others won't today so that you can do what others can't tomorrow. I try to live by that, because I feel like people aren't willing to do the hard stuff. And then when it comes down to it, they're not where they want to be.
Like living in a house hack.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say my quote too, if that's okay.
Yes, 100%. I want to hear yours too.
Mine is, never underestimate the power of your actions. One small gesture can change a person's life for better or for worse. I think we just all need to be a light in each other's lives and be uplifting and positive.
I love that. Well, you have definitely delivered that message today. I remember chatting with you guys after the cash flow conference, and you were telling me a little bits and pieces of this stuff. And I was just like, my goodness, like this is so cool what you guys have done. I couldn't wait to get you on the podcast and be able to chat about it more in detail. But you definitely, like I say, you give off that light. It's inspiring. It's cool to hear what you're doing. And like, there's something about, like I said, that you haven't been doing this for 20 years and it's not a million deals. It just feels so approachable. It's like, oh my gosh, like anybody can do this. You know what I mean? So super exciting to hear from that. Well, without any further ado, thank you guys so much for being on the podcast. This is Joe Jensen signing off for the Real Estate Investing School podcast, reminding you it's always scary until it isn't.